Alex Pereira is moving up in weight after losing his title and will face top former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz. The fight will take place in the co-main event of UFC 291, which will take place in Salt Lake City. Hello friends, World of MMA is here with you. In today's video I will give a prediction for the fight between Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira. But before you start this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give me a like. Let's go. Jan Blachowicz is already 40 years old, but can it be said that age has not done him any good? On the contrary. With experience he has only become more dangerous. The Pole came to Dana White's promotion with a 17-3 record in 2014, and has 12 wins in 19 fights since then. Yes, 6 losses isn't a small number, but the Pole has had some pretty serious opposition as well. On top of that, 2 of those defeats Jan closed out in rematches. Both Jimmy Manuwa and especially Corey Anderson felt how the Pole has evolved. Corey even left the UFC after a hard knockout, and that fight, which took place on February 15, 2020, put Blachowicz in position for a title shot. Jon Jones was impressed with the Polish fighter's performance, and expressed his desire to defend his belt against him. Now Blachowicz has 10 wins in his last 13 fights and is a very serious name. Time passed, Jones decided to move up to heavyweight, but Jan got his chance, though, with another opponent Dominic Reyes. Being a clear underdog, the Pole managed to finish the favorite in the second round and won the coveted belt. In the spring of 2021, he had already managed to make a title defense and inflicted the first defeat in his career to Israel Adesanya, albeit in an unfamiliar division for the New Zealander. After taking a break to be with his family after the birth of his son, the Polish fighter returned to Abu Dhabi, the place where he won the championship belt. But this time unsuccessfully. Glover Teixeira, 42, also improved over the years and deservedly took the title. The Pole himself returned 6 months later in a fight against bright prospect Alexander Rakic, who could count on a title shot if he won. The fight was competitive, but at the beginning of the third round the Austrian's leg failed, the fight was stopped, and Blachowicz got the most dangerous opponent of his career, and a few weeks before the tournament their fight became a title fight. But his bout with Magomed Ankalaev was a loss for both of them. The fight ended in a draw and no one was able to take the title. Alex Pereira may not have been in MMA very long, but he has made quite a splash. First, after several mixed martial arts wins, the company notices him and signs him to a promotion to promote his potential fight against Israel in the future. The Brazilian is starting to win and the company decides to fast-track him. The UFC gives him a puncher who at the time was in the top 5 middleweight division. Pereira, to the surprise of many, was able to knock out his opponent and to take his position, thereby knocking himself out of a title fight against an old acquaintance of Adesanya's. The fight for Alex did not turn out the way he wanted it to. The champion controlled the fight for almost the entire allotted time, but at the end of the 5th round Pereira decided to wake up. With one of his punches, he shocks the champion and finishes him off. Thus, he becomes the new middleweight champion. But the UFC gives the former champion a chance, and their rematch went much worse for Alex than their first fight. Until the 3rd round, the fighters had a shootout on the hands, where I didn't see a clear favorite. But in the 3rd round, with one of his punches, Israel sends his opponent into a deep knockout, and thus he avenges his past defeat. Alex wanted to make another fight with Adesanya, but Dana White wasn't thrilled with the idea and suggested that Pereira move up a category and try his hand there. And as we can see, he listened to the advice of the head of the company and fights Jan Blachowicz, a representative of the top 5 in that category. And as usual we'll start with the striking, and first up we have Alex Pereira. Alex in the stand-up is more dangerous than ever, because he came from kickboxing. And as we know from Adesanya, the guys who come from this sport are different in their fighting game, i.e. his style, punches, completely different than the average fighter. His footwork and his ability to work on the counterattack can help him catch a pole. As we know, Jan has already been caught with an accurate lateral toward him. Thiago Santos was able to catch Blachowicz's mistakes. So what's a fighter who specializes in counterattacks going to do to him, waiting for you to go at him? Pereira had some moments in his career when he showed his brilliant technique. Now let's move on to the striking technique of Jan Blachowicz. Judging by his skills, Jan is naturally inferior to the former champion. But he has his own equally cool advantages. One of them is the legendary Polish power, with which he has destroyed quite a few high-class fighters. Jan knows how to work in a stand-up. His last fight against Ankalaev, as an example, the Pole used the whole arsenal of his punches. And as we recall, the low kicks played a major role in that fight. Of course, against a kickboxer such tactics could be of no use. But the legendary Polish power has never been cancelled. Pereira has been knocked out before. So what prevents Blachowicz from repeating it again? It's not new to shock the fans. So what can we say about the result? Because of his great experience in punching technique, I'll choose Alex Pereira, who I think should outbox the Pole. Let's move on to wrestling technique, where this time we will start with January. In my opinion, Blachowicz is very strange in this respect. He destroys his opponents in wrestling, then he is the victim himself. But I have a logical explanation for all that. As we know, Blachowicz is not a super fighter. But he has a black belt in BJJ, and opposite him there is an opponent who does not know much about wrestling. He could easily take over and control the whole round. It happened already in the fight against Israel, where Blachowicz showed us his other side. But if he is opposed by a fighter with a good wrestling base, he may not even try to control him. On the contrary, they try to control him. Magomed Ankalaev can prove it with ease. But in his fight against Pereira, he has a big advantage. Let us now turn to Alex Pereira's wrestling. This is the only way I can describe his level. He's not a wrestler at all. He's been able to be out-wrestled by the base striker, Adesanya. So what's going to happen when he meets Jan Blachowicz, who will be happy to transfer you? As I said before, if a Pole sees that his opponent is 0 in the wrestling, then with 100% probability expect transfers. And when you consider the fact that Alex Pereira across from him, don't doubt it. Alex hasn't shown his wrestling skills in MMA yet, and I can't assess his defense or any pluses. Only minuses. Because his first professional fight was lost because of his inability to wrestling. And so, without any question, the favorite in this aspect will be considered Jan Blachowicz. I think Jan Blachowicz will win this fight, as Alex Pereira gets into the fight late, and through his wrestling Blachowicz will easily transfer the Brazilian and control him until the end of the fight. But we should also not forget the danger in the stand-up from Pereira, as he was able to surprise us by knocking out Adesanya. But if Blachowicz doesn't flirt in the stand-up and takes the fight to the canvas, he'll be 100% sure to win. What do you think, friends? Write your opinion in the comments. Goodbye.